All right, this was not exactly on the docket, but yeah, apparently somebody made a video on me, and yeah, let's go ahead and look over it. Before we get into that, though, we do want to get into the fan art section, as always. So, what we'll do, one of these I'm going to have to skip for just a moment, awkwardly, because I did not download it for the purpose of showing yet, so that is entirely on me. So, the very first one we have here is from Ivana Dragmeyer. It is a work in progress. The final one is actually there a little further down, but we'll get to that when we get to it. The next one is from Lexi the Mistress. No context given for this one either, but it does look amazing. And the last one we have is from Lunar Alice. Said their current progress on working on a Vroid Gothic Suris. Still have more to do, but it's been fun. Thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and take a look and see if there's any good arguments made here.
Hey, what's up guys? Rev here. So it's 2022 and there's still people out there, VTubers no less, that believe Gargura is against anything to do with lollies. Today's-
Wait. When did I say that? I don't think I actually said that. Hold on, let's see if they provide a tweet where I said Gara is anti-lollies. Let's see.
This example is no exception. Now we're jumping into this very long Twitter thread like we're starting One Piece on episode 900, but to make a very long story short, complaints about VTubers not liking anime divulged into VTubers claiming that their community does not support lolly models or Lolicons, where one user countered with the fact that Gargura, a VTuber with a lolly model, has over 4 million subscribers and based on her well-documented behavior, clearly does not have a problem with anything relating to Lolicon, routinely making less than subtle nods at its culture. But now that we're all caught up to speed, let's look at the latest response from our main protagonist.
I like how they actually... So I like how they censor the names, but they don't censor the images, where it's very easy to actually find anybody. If your goal... if your goal is to stop people from harassing the people you're doing content on, and that's why you're censoring their names, if that's what you're trying to do, not censoring the actual images as well probably won't help. That said, this is kind of a moot point, considering that just by showing tweets, if I type in the entirety of a tweet into a advanced search engine for Twitter, I'll likely find any tweet I'm looking for. But let's go ahead and continue on here.
Here stating, the goalpost moves to Gura being a lolicon. Still need evidence that Gura is fixated on young children. None is presented. Also, Gura is what all VTubers aspire to be? Hardly. And blah, 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 blah.
Oh, wait, blah, 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 blah? So you didn't want to say the... I mean, you showed it, but you didn't want to say the part where I pointed out I prefer having independence, and so having my entire persona wrapped up in a corporate identity would be a no-go? I guess that part didn't matter much. I mean, it's almost like it's a crux of my position. Kind of important, you know, for me, personally, but okay.
A person like this thinking VTubers don't aspire to be Gura actually makes a lot of sense because...
Wait. I said, is Gura what all VTubers aspire to be? I have no... two issues. One, the original poster said Gura is what the average VTuber aspired to be, and my mistake was reading that as Gura is what all VTubers aspire to be. So now we've got this lovely game of telephone where I fucked up, and then you fucked up directly after me. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So my position is that Gura is not what all VTubers aspire to be, which I think is a fairly true statement. Not everybody wants to have their entire identity erased by a corporation only to have a more sterilized version of one concocted for them. Not everybody does. Some people do. Some people would rather have that all of that taken care of for them by a corporation so that they can do whatever they want in their real life. There's a nice divide between real life and the life you have on Twitch at that point. You don't have it all wrapped together, and most of your things like your collaborations and everything else can be planned out by a marketing team. Life is easier and better in those regards where you have a lot of things taken care of for you by a corporation. But at the same time, if your identity is wrapped up in your VTuber model in any way, shape, or form, having that owned by HoloLive or anybody else, probably not the way you want to go, personally. For me, seeing as I had a persona before VTubing, and the VTuber persona was an extension of that persona, I would not want that persona either stripped away from me by a corporation, or replaced by a corp, or even owned by it in any way, shape, or form. That's the crux of my argument there. There are people who like VTubing as an aesthetic choice, or VTubing, even the culture of it, but don't necessarily want to have a corp over their heads.
A person like this thinking VTubers don't aspire to be Gura actually makes a lot of sense, because they're so Twitter poisoned and detached from the pulse of their potential audience that their brains can't compute as to how a lolly model can achieve such immense levels of success in a career field that centers around anime and all that it encompasses.
Oh no, I'm actually not off of that pulse at all. I just don't have that target audience. The target audience that is obsessed with moe culture is not my audience. My finger isn't necessarily not on that pulse. I understand the appeal. I really do, especially considering a lot of the anime that I watch. One of my favorite characters in Tenchi Muyo was Sasami. I think Kana in Dragon Maid is fucking adorable. Those types of lolly characters, those types of cute moe characters, I think are absolutely wonderful. However, that is not the audience I am going for. Remember that the VTuber audience is not just one thing. There's a lot of people who watch VTubing because they're anime fans, but there's also people who don't watch a lot of anime who do end up watching VTubers for other reasons. There are people who don't like a lot of anime, but also will watch someone like Nyanners for the utter chaos that is some of her streams, or the music. She's actually a damn good singer. There are people who do not like watching anime, but watch me because of my coverage on politics. And there are VTubers who don't even go for an anime aesthetic. Think of somebody like Poppy the Lich, who does not use an anime aesthetic for their model. They are completely outside of that grouping. That's not to say whether or not those VTubers like anime or have their fingers on the pulse. They have a different target demographic, and not everybody is trying to grab that, quite frankly, incredibly saturated target demographic.
Including lollies and Lolicon, and a fixation on young children. With a quick Google search, this VTuber could have enlightened themselves that age is completely irrelevant to the definition of lolly.
True. So here's one thing that they actually are saying is true, though my contention is a little bit different than what they're saying. So yes, lolly has nothing to do with the age of the character. You can have a 700-year-old dragon. That's fair. However, lolly does have to do with the way a character is coded fictionally. A character can be coded as a child, despite being 700 years old. Again, think Sasami. She is literally a 700-year-old character in Tenchi Muyo, but she is coded like a child, whereas her sister, who is only a little bit older than her, Ayeka, is coded to be more in her late teens, despite them both being several hundred years old. Depending on the writer, depending on the author, the age of your character matters less than the way in which they're written. A character who's written to be 1,000 years old, but has the mannerisms of somebody who is 6 or 7, is going to be treated like somebody who's 6 or 7. Sorry, having to make sure that my cat does not step on things. I don't think that every character that's a lolly character is necessarily a child within the canon of their universe, but typically those more cutesy lolly characters tend to be coded that way. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? No. It's a thing I don't really care about a whole lot. My point where Garagura is concerned is that I cannot find evidence that she herself is a lolicon. The most you can find is, and actually they're going to show it later in the video, but the most you're going to be able to find is areas where she's nodded to that community. But you also have to remember, Gara is a polished internet personality who has been created and coded and cauterized by HoloLive. What she as a person likes and what her company wants her to like can be two different things. They might be identical. Who knows? I have no way of knowing. But you have to understand, when somebody is beholden to one of those corporations, they're primarily going to side with what that corporation wants. If that corporation wants your character to be small, cutesy, and moe, and then when people make artwork of your character, even if it's lewd, you're going to have to like that art. You're going to have to respond positively to that art. That's not to say that she doesn't genuinely like that art, but I think the argument here is based on evidence that Garagura believes one thing or another when what she believes is largely immaterial. She, as much as it's probably uncomfortable to think about, is a corporate creation. There's a person behind that corporate creation, but it's just like loving, say, Ryan Reynolds. You're going to be liking a person who's playing a character. Several characters, depending on the person. It's a bit more parasocial and a bit more personal when we're talking about VTubers, because we are talking about people who are streaming, which is a very personalized environment where me and you, it's almost as if we're having a conversation together. And in fact, it's happening in real time. But that's just me.
You guys remember Brittany Venti? This is the exact same argument she made 2 years ago, calling Garagura a child model and that lollies are children, and that only predators could like them.
Now, it's funny, because this video is going to come out after the video I do on the Lolicon drama that this video is being made from. And what you'll find in that video, and what I'll reiterate in this one, is that I don't think that people who like lolly stuff are predators. I don't. In fact, actually, even if we were to accept the argument that they were pedophiles, only 40% of people who are actually diagnosed with that end up harming children in the first place. So to argue that anybody who likes this stuff is necessarily a predator is wrong psychologically. And that's a position that I can hold because I've read the actual documentation on this. Awkwardly, a person that Rev posted in here provided a good chunk of that documentation themselves. So while I want to thank them for that, I'm also not going to thank somebody who's being incredibly toxic, because my issue with lolicon culture tends to come down less to the knee-jerk reaction of, oh my god, this person's a predator, and comes down more on the fact that I believe that this is an incredibly toxic community of people, and whenever somebody has, say, legitimate criticisms for that community, they tend to rope them all into this otherized anti-lolly grouping of people, and then start attacking them from there. But let's continue.
Spoiler alert, that did not go over well with VTuber fans. And evidence of Garagura being a lolicon, well, I think it's likely but not definitive that she is, at
least he agrees that it's not definitive, even with, like, let's see what his reasoning is.
Very least, she has made it painfully obvious that she seeks to appeal to that demographic through the design of her model and her actions.
It's not that she seeks to appeal to that demographic. It's that HoloLive seeks for her to appeal to that demographic. Maybe I've just been watching too much of The Boys lately, but it should be understood that if a character is owned by a corporation like Gara is, because Gara is a character. There's a person behind the character, but Gara is nonetheless a character. If that character is owned by a corporation, what the corp wants is going to be the thing the corp gets. And if the character constructed her model as a lolly or moe model, then it is likely that's the demographic they're going to appeal to, because that's how marketing works.
Here's some very not so subtle references to Lolicon that Gura has made on her streams.
A ghost lolly. Oh, it's so loud. I don't know if she's a lolly. I think she is. Lolly. Lolly. Rory. Rory. Rory? Don't say that. Say what?
Oh, the 4-letter word clip. This is the 4-letter word clip, isn't
it? Are you
it?
scared of a little 4-letter word?
Yep, that's the 4-letter word
Somebody's
clip.
crying! Man, what's with all the tears? Stop, don't cry. It's okay. Oh! Oh! Cute and funny.
So if the oh and cute and funny aka Kuni jokes weren't glowing enough, consider the fact that she routinely retweets ecchi lolly artwork based on her character.
Again, though, this is a person who has a character who's been constructed for them by HoloLive. And that character is going to necessarily respond a certain way to all of her artwork. Now, I'm not saying she might not like that artwork. Hell, whenever people make artwork of me that is even more lewd than I'm comfortable with, I tend to be okay with it and go, yeah, no, you made a thing that you like. That's awesome. People have made tentacle porn of my character, which is not a thing I seek out. But it's a thing that people have done regardless. Pole Aficionado, thank you for the follow. Bird Boy and Dystopian, thank you for the follows as well. So, and maybe this is just the part of me that has spent a lot of time as a YouTuber, but there's an amount of respect that you have to give to fan artists who are making things for you. You have to remember, somebody's taken the time out of their day to make artwork for you, specifically of you. Even if it's of your VTuber model, they're making something for you. Most people, even for artwork that's going to make them a little uncomfortable, are going to respond to that artwork positively because somebody has made something for you. And that's over and above the argument that this is what a corporation wants her to do because she is a character who is owned by a corporation. So they made what now? Ivana Dragmai, people have made tentacle porn of me. There's no actual, like, there's no news there.
Is that enough proof? People like this really make you laugh. They'll bury their head in the sand and claim that no evidence suggests Gargura supports Lolicon, only to support their own argument, while simultaneously claiming that no VTuber aspires to be like them, when in reality...
Well, hold on. That would be an interesting statement. That right there, Rev, would be a very interesting statement if I had said that. So I said, not that Garagura is not a lolicon. I said that there was not evidence to suggest that she herself is, which until she graduates, we won't have that evidence. Because until she is not beholden to a HoloLive contract, we're not going to know the things she really believes. We're going to know what is filtered through the corp. That's how characters like that function. As uncomfortable as it is to think about, that's reality. The second thing, my statement that all VTubers don't aspire to be Gar, that's not my statement. My statement was that I, as somebody who is a VTuber and does VTubing as a living, do not aspire to be Garagura. Are there positive things that I have to acknowledge about having a corporation control that much of your life? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Having a character who's been completely sterilized by a corp is a very comfortable thing to have. You don't have to worry about as much drama or controversy or anything. Having a lot of your collaborations handled within network amongst other people in your same network, that's a dream come true for most people who do streaming as a job. A lot of people who do streaming full time have social anxiety, and approaching other streamers asking for collaborations is an incredibly difficult thing to do for several people. I can see the appeals to being in a situation like Gara's, but it's not a situation that I personally want. I would rather grow my audience independently, and I would rather work with several independent VTubers. Now, would I not want to work with a corporate VTuber? No, I'd be perfectly fine working with one. I just don't want to be one. And that was my point. My point wasn't that I don't think that all VTubers want to be that. And saying that that was my point is a very interesting way to frame your video when those aren't the words I said. But I do know what's going on here, because I understand what it's like to have a target audience. When you have a target audience that wants to immediately jump on the defenses of lolicon culture, for instance, as opposed to criticizing it, those are the types of people who are, because they are stuck in that culture, are not going to want to listen to nuance in a conversation. They're going to want to dogpile. And that was my criticism of lolicon culture when I did my big video on it in the first place. My issue with it isn't that, oh my god, there's a bunch of predators here. No, because scientifically, there aren't. And even if there were people who might be predators, there is an argument to be made that having that material available to them lowers the chances that they'll actually harm anybody who would be vulnerable. Those things are all supported by scientific data. My point is that the community itself, not the material, has bred an incredibly toxic environment of people who are willing to jump at and lash out at multiple people on the internet merely because, and here's my guess, they've been burned so many times with the allegations of pedophilia that their first reaction is to think that somebody is coming and trying to burn them again, as opposed to giving some other kind of criticism. When I made my statement during the conversation with Monica on Twitter about how it's fun to anger the Lolicons, is it because I think they're all predators? No. It's because I think it's fun to anger toxic communities, because the way they lash out is largely predictable. But that's it for Reb's video, and that's it for mine. I didn't originally want to cover the video, but it was thrown on my doorstep, so here we are. Might as well. I'm also tempted to throw a like on his video, but I do appreciate the effort of trying to not show my name, but my visage was still there. Doesn't matter. Anywho, Suris did show a DM. That was naughty. Yeah, I did. I did show a single DM from a single person coming to troll me. I did do that, you're right. That said, though, if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment section below. I'm not trying to start a crap ton of beef, but I do think it's funny when somebody has the exact words that I said and still manages to misread them. I think it's great, especially when I myself made that exact mistake in the statement originally. It's a mistake that I made, and then they make the statement as well. It's absolutely fantastic. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here.